God is still writing your story. You just haven't read this chapter yet. Rain sound. Are you in the middle of something you don't understand? Do you feel like your life has stalled on a page that makes no sense? Maybe you've prayed, waited, cried out until your voice gave out, and all you got was silence. A silence so deep it hurts your soul, echoing through the darkest corners of your heart, like a question without an answer. But let me remind you of something that could change not only your night, but your entire perspective on what you're going through right now. God is still writing your story. You just haven't read this chapter yet. You know how? When you're reading a book, you get to that part that feels confusing, where the characters are lost, where everything seems senseless, but you keep reading because you trust the author. That's exactly what's happening with you right now. You're in the middle of a chapter that isn't finished yet, but the author already knows where it's all going to lead. He's already seen the ending, knows every twist and turn, and has prepared every resolution that will make you understand why you had to go through all of this. Your life isn't just a series of random events blown around by chance, not a string of coincidences that got lost along the way, like dried leaves carried off by the wind. Every tear you shed into your pillow when you thought no one was watching. Every night you couldn't sleep because your heart felt heavy as lead in your chest. Every prayer that seemed to echo into the void like a cry in the darkness. God is carefully orchestrating it all. He already knows the end of the story before it even begins. Have you ever thought that what you're calling a delay might actually be preparation? That what you're calling abandonment might be God's strategic repositioning? Sometimes God needs to move us from one place to another, and during that move, we temporarily lose sight of the destination. But that doesn't mean He stopped guiding us. It's like driving at night on an unfamiliar road where you can only see a few feet ahead in the headlights. That doesn't mean the road isn't there. It's laid out, fully paved, leading to the right destination. Yet you can only see a short stretch at a time. Remember how you felt as a child playing blind man's bluff? You couldn't see where you were going, but you trusted the voice guiding you. A little more to the right, now to the left. Watch out for that obstacle. You're almost there. And even though you couldn't see anything, you kept walking because you knew someone who could see everything was protecting you from dangers you couldn't identify and directing you toward a goal you couldn't reach on your own. That's exactly how God is working in your life right now. You can't see the full picture, but He can. You don't understand why certain doors slammed shut so hard they shook the whole house, but He knows there's something better waiting for you somewhere else. Something you never even imagined could exist. You can't grasp why certain people left your life just when you needed them most, leaving what felt like an impossible void. But He was making space for the right people to arrive at the right time with the right purpose. If this is making sense to you, comment. I'm still in the story. Not all pain is an ending. Not every pause is abandonment. Not every blank page means there's no plan. Sometimes that blank page is the space the writer intentionally leaves for something huge that's about to happen. Something so significant, it needs extra room, special preparation, and a clean backdrop so it can shine in all its glory. Have you noticed how the best authors work? They don't put all the important events in the very first chapter, dumping everything at once like a bucket of water. They build, develop, and create suspense, skillfully knowing that waiting makes the reward even sweeter. There are moments of tension designed to make the coming relief feel even more valuable. There are chapters that seem slow, but are actually preparing the ground for action scenes that will take your breath away. Some characters disappear temporarily from the story, but return at the exact moment they're needed for the plot's resolution, when their presence makes all the difference between defeat and victory. Your life follows the same pattern, except for one factor that changes everything. The author is perfect. He never writes plot holes that need fixing in a second edition. He never creates inconsistencies that leave the reader confused. He never forgets a key character that should have shown up 3 chapters ago. He never leaves loose ends that make the story feel incomplete or poorly constructed. While you cry, thinking it's all over and your story has ended in a tragic, premature finale, he's editing with the precision of someone who knows every word, refining every situation, carefully setting up the next scene like an artist. While you wait, feeling abandoned on a dusty shelf like a book no one wants to read, he's plotting a twist that will make you understand why you had to go through all of this, why each tear had a purpose, why each sleepless night was building something inside you. While you feel lost in the middle of the chapter like someone who's gone astray in a dense forest where all the trees look the same, he's already 5 chapters ahead, knowing exactly how everything will fit together, how each puzzle piece will find its perfect place in the final picture of your life. Think about when you're watching a well-made suspense movie and feel anxious because you can't figure out what's going on, but in the end, everything fits so perfectly that you think, now I see why that weird scene happened at the beginning, why that character said that, why that situation had to happen in that specific way. That is exactly the kind of clarity you'll have when you reach the end of this chapter in your life. What you see as God's silence might actually be Him working intensely behind the scenes of your story. You know what it's like when you're preparing a special surprise for someone you love. You may seem distant, a bit mysterious, not because you don't care, but because you're scheming something good, something that will brighten their heart in ways they can't imagine. Sometimes, love shows itself in silent preparation, in unseen efforts, in careful work that happens before the person even knows they need caring. God is not absent from your story like an author who left the manuscript half finished. He's present in ways you still can't see, but that are more real than your very breath. He's working through circumstances you didn't choose, through people you never expected to meet along the way, through situations that look like coincidences, but are actually His hand moving everything with surgical precision. Have you ever looked back on your own life and seen God's hand in situations that at the time seemed like unsolvable problems? That layoff, which was devastating and made you question your worth and competence, but ultimately led you to a better job where you discovered talents you never knew you had. That relationship that ended in a way that shattered your heart into pieces you thought would never mend, but which opened space for the right person to come into your life at exactly the right time. That forced relocation you resisted so much, which shook your comfort zone like an earthquake, but placed you exactly where you needed to be for your life to follow the path God intended. The same divine logic is at work in your life right now. What you're living through today will make sense tomorrow in a way that will leave you speechless with gratitude. The chapter that seems confusing now, filled with question marks and ellipses, will become the foundation for the most beautiful chapter of your story, the one you'll reread over and over, because you won't believe it's really your life. Your life is not a poorly written draft to be crumpled up and tossed away so you can start over. It's not an abandoned project stuffed in a dusty drawer like forgotten dreams. Your life is a book being carefully written by eternal hands. Every word has a specific purpose. Every comma has a reason to be there. Every paragraph is connected to the next in ways only the author can fully see. And the best chapters, the ones that make you thankful you didn't quit reading when everything seemed to make no sense, almost always begin after the hardest pages. It's as if the author has to take you through the darkest valley so that you can truly appreciate the view from the mountaintop, so that the sunshine is even brighter after the storm's darkness. Maybe you're going through a dark stretch of your story right now. Maybe the words on the page seem blurred by your constant tears, like an unrelenting rain. Maybe you've read and reread this chapter, trying to find some sense, some hope, some sign of what's coming, like searching for a flashlight in the pitch black. But remember something crucial. This is not the end of your story. Have you ever read a book where the hero faces a terrible phase, where everything goes wrong all at once, losing everything important and being left alone to face giants that seem impossible to defeat? And you think, how on earth can this story have a happy ending? How is this character ever going to get out of this situation? But then, when you least expect it, comes a twist so perfect, so well constructed, so satisfying, that you realize all that previous hardship was necessary for the final victory to be that much sweeter and more meaningful. That's exactly what's happening to you right now. You're at the part of the story where everything seems lost, your enemies seem stronger, and your circumstances seem unbeatable. But the author has already written the turn of events that will change everything. He's already prepared the chapter where it all makes sense, like puzzle pieces finally locking into place. He's already scheduled the exact moment when you'll look back with tears of gratitude in your eyes and say, "Now I get why I had to go through all that, why that door had to close, why that person had to leave my life, why that dream had to be delayed." The difference between a human-written book and your life is that human writers sometimes create difficult situations just to add drama, with no real purpose behind the hardship. But God never allows difficulty in your life without it serving a bigger purpose than you can imagine. Every trial has a specific function in developing your character. Every tear has a purpose in growing your faith. Every sleepless night is building an inner strength you'll need when faced with future challenges and opportunities. Think about your favorite characters from films or books that left a mark on your life. Which ones do you remember best? The ones you never forget. Usually it's those who faced huge challenges and came out the other side transformed, stronger, wiser, more compassionate. They're the ones who fought the impossible and discovered they were braver than they ever thought. The ones who lost something precious but gained something even greater in return, a better version of themselves. You're not some helpless victim in your own story, tossed around by your circumstances like a leaf on the wind. You are the protagonist of your journey, and every true protagonist goes through a transformation arc that leaves them unrecognizable by the final chapter. You can't be the same person in the last chapter that you were in the first. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any growth, no victory, no compelling story to tell. The chapter you're living right now is preparing you to be exactly who you need to be for the upcoming chapters of your life. The abilities you're developing in hardship, the patience you're learning while waiting, the faith that's growing amidst uncertainty. These will be exactly the tools you need when your season of victory and abundance arrives. If this spoke to you, comment, "I'm still in this book, God." Remember Job? He lost everything in a matter of days, like a house of cards blown over by a breeze. He lost his children, the possessions he worked a lifetime to build. his health that gave him strength for each day, and even the support of his wife, who should have been by his side in life's hardest moments. Even his friends, those who were supposed to console him, turned on him with accusations and judgment. If you read only the middle of Job's story, you'd be certain this is the saddest, most unfair story I've ever read. This man was completely abandoned by God when he needed him the most. But that wasn't the whole story God was writing. God wasn't done working in Job's life. In the end, after all that suffering that seemed pointless, Job not only got back everything he'd lost, he received double. And it wasn't just about having his material possessions returned. Job had such a deep, transformative encounter with God that he famously said, "I had only heard about you before, but now my eyes have seen you." The loss didn't mark the end of Job's story. It was the necessary lead-in to an even more glorious chapter where he came to know God in a way that would never have been possible in his comfort zone. Remember Joseph? His own brothers sold him into slavery, betrayed by the very family who was supposed to protect him. He was taken to a foreign land where he knew no one. Then, just as he was starting to rebuild his life, he was falsely accused of a crime he didn't commit and thrown into prison like a common criminal. While in prison, he helped people who promised to remember him once they were freed, but they forgot all about him as soon as they left. If Joseph's story had ended there, in prison, it would have been one of the greatest injustices on record. But God was writing a redemption story that would affect not just Joseph's life, but the fate of an entire nation facing a devastating famine. Years later, when Joseph finally revealed himself to the brothers who had betrayed him, he said something that perfectly sums up how God works in the lives of his children. "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Every betrayal, every injustice, every desperate moment in Joseph's life was used by God to position him exactly where he needed to be, not only to save his family, but thousands of others he didn't even know. Remember Ruth? She was a young widow at a time when being widowed often meant you had no future, especially as a foreigner in a culture that wasn't yours. No children to care for her in old age, no real hope of marriage again, following her mother-in-law who was also grieving, heading to a land that wasn't hers with no family support, no contacts, no guarantee of survival. If you read only the first chapter of Ruth's story, you'd think, this woman has no chance of a happy life. She's on a path to poverty and loneliness. But God was writing a story beyond anything Ruth could have imagined in her wildest dreams. She found a husband who loved and provided for her abundantly, and she became the great-grandmother of King David, included in the very genealogy of Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world. Her widowed years didn't erase her story. They paved the way for a storyline that would impact all of humanity for generations to come. Remember Esther? An orphan without father or mother to protect her, an immigrant in a foreign land, an ethnic minority, in a society that didn't value her people. Yet God placed her exactly where she needed to be, at the exact time she needed to be there, so she could save her entire people from genocide that was already planned and authorized. What looked like a simple beauty contest was, in fact, the divine strategy to put the right person in the right place at the right time to change the fate of an entire nation. Remember David, the youngest son, the forgotten one, the kid who wasn't even invited when the prophet Samuel came to anoint a king in his family. He spent years hiding in caves, running from Saul like a criminal, forced to hide like a fugitive, sleeping in cold, dangerous places, eating whatever he could scrounge. But God was preparing a king after his own heart, someone who would rule Israel in an age of unmatched prosperity. All these examples have something in common that should speak to your heart. There was a moment in each of their stories when all seemed completely lost, with no way out, no hope. But that was not the end. It was simply the turning point before the greatest blessings of their lives, the fulfillment of purposes far beyond anything they themselves could have envisioned. You are at your turning point right now, even if you can't see it yet. What you're labeling as the end might actually be the beginning of the best chapter of your life. What you're calling failure might be the springboard for your greatest success. What you're calling loss might be the space God is creating for something far better to come in. This page you're living through might not make sense if you read it in isolation, like a sentence plucked out of context from a book. It might seem disconnected, confusing, maybe even cruel if you look at it alone. But it has a purpose. It's connected to something bigger, a chapter that will soon make you lift your hands in gratitude that you didn't give up when everything seemed impossible. You know how it is when you're putting together a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. At first, you have all these little pieces scattered on the table, and you can't see how they'll ever fit together to form the picture on the box. Some pieces seem like they don't even belong. Others look like they're in completely the wrong spot. You try to fit one that seems right, but it doesn't go. You try again differently, and it still doesn't fit. Yet slowly, as you keep patiently assembling piece by piece, a picture begins to emerge. And at the end, when you place the final piece, you realize each tiny fragment was essential to completing the image, even the ones that seemed useless. That's exactly how your life is, a complex, beautiful puzzle. You're holding a few pieces right now that don't make sense, that seem to have no place in your story, but they're crucial to the final image God envisions for you. That rejection that hurt you so deeply, you thought you'd never trust again. It's a piece of the puzzle. That opportunity you lost that made you question your competence. It's a piece of the puzzle. That person who left your life when you needed them most, leaving a hole that felt impossible to fill. It's a piece of the puzzle. God sees the finished work of art your life will become. He knows exactly where each piece belongs, why each experience is necessary, how every situation is preparing you for what's next. He knows that without that specific hardship, you wouldn't develop the inner strength you'll need to face future challenges. He knows that without that particular disappointment, you wouldn't properly value the blessing that's on its way. He knows that without the waiting that's teaching you patience, you wouldn't be ready to receive and manage what He has for you. Often, what hurts us the most in the present is also what transforms us the most for the future. An oyster doesn't produce its most valuable pearl in calm, comfortable water. It happens when an irritant, something uncomfortable, enters its shell, and it has to react, coating that irritant with layers that over time become something beautiful and precious. You're in the middle of creating your pearl right now. The thing that's bothering you, making you suffer, pushing you to the edge of your comfort zone. This might be exactly what God is using to create something priceless, rare, and beautiful in you. It's no coincidence that diamonds form under extreme pressure in conditions that seem impossible to withstand. It's no coincidence that gold must pass through fire to be purified and show its true worth. It's no coincidence that plants grow stronger and more vibrant after storms that could have destroyed them. God uses pressure, fire, and storms as tools of transformation in His children's lives. What you're facing now isn't God punishing you for something you did wrong. It's His careful preparation for something you can't yet imagine. It's not God abandoning you when He promised never to leave or forsake you. It's God refining you, molding you into exactly who you need to be. It's not the final line of your story written in black ink. It's the process that will make your next chapters shine brighter than ever. God does not waste pain in the lives of His children. He doesn't allow unnecessary or purposeless suffering. If you're going through something hard right now, it's because there's something on the other side worth every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt. There's a better version of you that can only be born through this exact experience. There's a strength in you that can only be uncovered in this valley you're walking through. There's a faith in you that can only be refined in this fire you're enduring. Comment right here. Even without understanding, I trust. Don't skip the chapter you're living in right now. Even if it's painful to read, even if the words cut like thorns in your heart, even if you feel like closing the book and never opening it again because you can't take any more suffering, don't skip it, because this chapter is preparing you for something beyond what you can imagine, for a version of your life that will surpass your boldest dreams. Don't close the book of your life. Even if your tears are smudging the pages like constant rain, even if you have to pause to take a deep breath between paragraphs, even if you feel like you don't have the strength to keep reading because the story is too heavy for your heart, don't close it, because the most beautiful part of your story is waiting to be lived on the next pages. God is still writing your story right this very moment. While you read these words, while your heart beats in your chest, while you breathe and exist, He's working out the details of your next chapter. He's setting up encounters that will completely change your perspective. He's preparing opportunities that will open doors you didn't even know were there. He's moving people and circumstances behind the scenes so that everything aligns at the perfect time, the exact moment you're ready to receive it. Your story is still alive, pulsing with infinite possibilities. It's still being written with care by the one who loves you more than you can fathom. It's still being carefully woven by the one who knows every comma of your heart, every paragraph of your soul, every chapter of your destiny that has yet to be revealed. And the author of your life never loses control of the narrative. Never. Even when you feel everything is out of control, when circumstances seem to be writing the story instead of God, when it looks like the plot has completely derailed and there's no way to fix it, He remains the sovereign author. He still has the final word on every chapter. He still knows exactly how to fix what seems irreparable, how to restore what appears utterly destroyed, how to resurrect what looks dead and buried. Remember, He specializes in resurrections. He not only raised Jesus from the dead after 3 days in the tomb, He resurrects dreams that seemed long gone, relationships that appeared irreversibly broken, hopes that were buried for years, purposes that looked cancelled. He takes what seems lifeless and breathes new life into it, as He did with Adam in the garden. He takes what seems like a dead end and creates a new path, opening a door where there was only a wall. So sleep in peace tonight. Sleep knowing that your story is being written with unconditional love, page by page, word by word, comma by comma. Every detail of your life is in the hands of the one who loves you with an everlasting love. Even when you don't understand the words on today's page, even when they seem strange and the storyline seems unclear, even when you want to grab the pen and write it yourself, in your own way, on your own schedule. Sleep knowing the author of your life loves you more than your human mind can comprehend, that he has plans for you that are bigger and better than anything your finite imagination could dream up, that he's preparing an ending for your story that will make you forget all the pain you felt along the way, all the confusion you experienced in the hardest chapters. Sleep knowing that tomorrow is a new blank page waiting to be written, and every new page is another chance for God to show you his unfailing love, his unending goodness, his fatherly care that never weakens or fades. Your story isn't over yet, nor is it even halfway through all that God has planned. The most beautiful, astonishing, joy-filled chapters are still safe in his heart, awaiting the perfect moment to be revealed. And when you get there, when you experience those chapters that seem impossible today, you'll look back with tears of gratitude, thankful you didn't give up when the pain felt unbearable, grateful you trusted even when you didn't understand the plan, thankful you let God keep writing even when you wanted to snatch the pen and do it yourself because you thought you knew best. Some people give up halfway because they can't handle the tension of character development, because they want to skip straight to the happy ending without going through the growth process. But you won't be one of those people. You will keep reading, page after page, even when the letters are blurred by tears, even when the chapter feels too long, even when you feel like stopping, because your heart is weary from feeling so much. You'll persevere because, deep down, in a place in your soul words can't always reach, you know something bigger is going on. You know this story is too important to abandon. You know the one who began this good work in you is faithful to complete it, and he never leaves a story half finished. Remember the times in your life when you were at the brink, convinced you couldn't take one more step, yet somehow you found the strength to go on. Remember those moments when the situation seemed unsolvable, and then suddenly a door opened, a solution appeared, a person showed up at just the right moment with exactly what you needed. That wasn't mere luck. It wasn't your own strength. It was the author of your life working behind the scenes, moving the chess pieces on the board of your existence, orchestrating circumstances so you could keep going. That same hand that sustained you then is sustaining you now. The same God who made a way when there was no way is making a new way for you right now. The same love that carried you when you couldn't walk on your own is carrying you even now, whether you feel it or not, even if it seems like you're walking alone. Sometimes God carries us so gently we don't even notice. It's like when you were a child and fell asleep in the car on a long drive. You'd wake up in your bed with no recollection of being carried out of the car, up the stairs and tucked in. Someone who loved you carried you while you slept, taking care of each detail so you'd arrive safely without even noticing the effort it took. God has carried you through situations that could have destroyed you, and yet here you are, alive, breathing, with a heart that still manages to hope after everything. That's not luck. It's not your own doing. It's the hand of the author who's caring for the main character of the story he's writing. And if he took care of you up to this point, through all the difficult chapters you've already faced, why would he stop now? If he's been faithful in every single page of your life so far, writing ways out where there seemed to be no way, creating possibilities where only impossibilities loomed, why do you doubt he will continue to be faithful in the pages to come? God's faithfulness doesn't depend on your circumstances. It doesn't expand when you're doing great and shrink when you're doing poorly. It doesn't fluctuate with your moods, your faith level, or your ability to understand his plan. His faithfulness is constant, like the sun that rises each day, reliable as math, unshakable as the mountains. Even when you can't see his hand at work, it's there. Even when you can't feel his presence, he is present. Even when you can't understand his methods, they're perfect. Even when you struggle to fully trust his plan, the plan is good and will succeed. Right now, there are things happening in your life that you can't see. Conversations are happening about you in places you don't even know exist. People are being prepared to enter your story at just the right moment. Opportunities are being crafted just for you. Doors are being unlocked that will soon be opened. Paths are being cleared that you will soon walk. All of this is happening while you live through this chapter that seems at a standstill, while you feel like nothing's changing, while you have the impression your life is in neutral. In truth, there's more activity behind the scenes of your story than you can imagine. God is working on multiple fronts at once, organizing details you don't even know need organizing. It's like planning a surprise party for someone special. They don't see the behind-the-scenes prep work, the phone calls, the invitations, the decorations, the cake being ordered. To them, it just looks like a normal day. But when the moment of surprise finally arrives, they discover there was so much more going on than they realized. God is preparing surprises for you that will exceed your most optimistic expectations. He's orchestrating meetings that will change your life in ways you can't yet dream of. He's planning opportunities that will make you realize why certain doors had to close, because there were much better doors waiting to be opened. While you read this, maybe somewhere in the world, someone is making a decision that will positively impact your life. Maybe someone is thinking of you for an incredible opportunity. Maybe a situation is being resolved in your favor without you even knowing it existed. Maybe a miracle is being prepared with your name on it. You can't see the whole picture because you weren't made to see everything. You were made to trust. You were made to walk by faith, not by sight. You were made to believe that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. And the work being done in you isn't just for you. Your story is connected to others' stories in ways you don't fully grasp yet. The lessons you're learning in this difficult chapter will help someone else who's going through something similar. The strength you're building in this battle will inspire someone who needs to see an example of perseverance. The testimony that will rise from your victory will encourage someone who's on the verge of giving up. God isn't just writing your individual story. He's writing a bigger story where you play a vital part, where your life intersects with others in a stunning, purposeful way. Your current chapter could be preparing you not only for your own future blessings, but also to be a blessing in someone else's life. That's why your story is too important to be cut short. That's why you can't give up halfway. That's why you need to keep trusting even when you don't understand. Because there are people who need you to finish your journey, who need your testimony, who will be impacted by what God will do in your life. So rest tonight. Rest knowing you're in good hands. Rest knowing your story is being written by the one who never makes mistakes, is never late, and never forgets a single important detail. Rest knowing that tomorrow will be a new day, a new page, a new opportunity to see God's hand working in your life. Let go of the worries weighing down your shoulders, the concerns that aren't yours to carry. Relax your face, tense from trying to understand what only God needs to understand. Breathe deeply and remember, you are safe. You are being taken care of. You are being written with love. And love never fails. Love never gives up. Love never abandons a story in the middle. God's love for you is what ensures your story will have a beautiful ending, even if the middle part is painful. It's what guarantees every tear has a purpose, every pain has a meaning, every waiting period has a reward. Close your eyes and let this truth sink into your heart like fresh water on dry ground. God is still writing your story, and the best is yet to come. If this message touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to be reminded they're still in the story. Maybe you know someone who's in the middle of a tough chapter, someone who's thinking about giving up, someone who needs to remember that God is still writing. Be the instrument God uses to bring hope to that person who needs to hear exactly what you just heard. Subscribe here. This is a safe space for your soul, a place you can come whenever you need to be reminded who you are and who's in charge of your story. A place where faith is strengthened and hope is renewed. Like a plant watered after a drought, you're not alone on this journey. Thousands of people are reading these same words right now, facing the same battles you are, needing the same hope you need, discovering they're not the only ones feeling lost in the middle of the chapter. You're connected by faith, united by hope, strengthened by the assurance that God is still writing beautiful stories in the lives of His children. Keep coming back here whenever you need this reminder. Keep holding on to this truth when the chapter feels too confusing. Keep trusting the author when the story doesn't make sense to your limited mind. Your story is beautiful. Your story has an eternal purpose. Your story is still being written by the hands that never shake, by a heart that never stops loving you, by a mind that never gets tangled in the details, and you will live to see the most beautiful chapters still to come.